Good morning. I'm Susie Terrell with the La Center Historical Museum. Today is November 16th, and I am going to be chatting with Mr. Don Anderson about his time living here in La Center. Okay, this is Don Anderson of La Center, and just going to be asking a couple of questions about your time here in La Center. So, how long have you lived in the Clark County area?
About 58 years, I guess.
So most of your life then. Were you born here?
No, I was born in Rugby, North Dakota. 47, and went to the first grade there in a one-room school. Every set of rows was a different grade. And so I was in the first grade. My sister was up in the 5th grade, I believe. And so I remember that really well. Mrs. Hunter was her name. Had an outhouse instead of the regular bathroom. So.
Is that right?
And we lived right across the street from the school, so that was kind of interesting. And then the summer after first grade, we got in the Henry J and drove out to Longview, Washington, where my relatives are, my grandpa on my mom's side, and her brothers and sisters. And my dad was born in Sweden, and he came over here when he was around 20. And then he finally found mom, of course, and he had us. There's 4 of us in our family, my brother and my 2 sisters. And so we lived there till, I guess it was the summer of '61. And I just turned 13, and we moved here to the center. I think my dad was working for Schneider Brothers. It was a hardware store up in Longview, and he was delivering appliances out here somewhere, and he saw that piece of property we lived on. It's 3 miles out of town on Staunton Road. So 3 miles. It was an old schoolhouse at one time, many years ago. So we lived in a trailer there till Dad cut the roof off the one section and lowered it down, make it look like a house. And then he added a couple of bedrooms onto that afterwards, and another bedroom and a little garage after that. And we lived there through high school. That was the first year was high school year, and freshman. And what's the middle school now was a brand new high school at that time. And then.
So that was out on which road was it?
Staunton Road. You go to the top of Logwood Hill. Take a right. That used to be County Road 48. I don't know what it is now. Everything had names and stuff back then, and now it's all numbers. So anyway, yeah. And then you go about a mile, and there's Staunton Road, and it shoots off to the right. And if you go past that, there's a wise and goes down to the river bottom.
Okay.
And towards Daybreak Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, and at that time, there was our house, and then at the very end of the road by the river was the Mary Hughes. And that was me and my brother's first job, was clearing the road so they wouldn't hit branches on their way. It was like a green tunnel. It was really neat. And now there's hundreds of houses out on that road now. But,
right.
So it was kind of a shock going to the center, the school, because when I was in junior high at Monticello and Longview, I had art classes and wood shops and metal shops and all kinds of things I liked. And came to the center, there was sports or FFA.
And that was all.
And I really didn't care for either one of those.
Yeah.
So, but I made it through okay. I had 1 year of art, sophomore year. And then my senior year, it was a 1 year of mechanical drawing, which I excelled in pretty good. And at that same time in the senior year, we all the boys anyway, the men, we went over and took our physicals in Portland for the draft. So I pretty much knew where I was going if I didn't get married and have a bunch of kids or go on to school or something. So, and I went down to Clark College, and I was thinking about going on to college. And the personnel person, I says, well, I want to take art classes and that kind of stuff. Oh, you have to take math. You got to take this one now. Geez. Well, I didn't want to do that, so I just went and found a job in Battleground at Shasta Trailers, and worked there till I got drafted. And then, so I was in the Army for 2 years. 6 months up at, or actually 3 months at Fort Lewis, and then on to Fort Polk, Louisiana for 3 months. And of course I advanced infantry training, so I pretty much knew where I was going, and ended up in Vietnam in the 1st Infantry, and that was kind of a strange place. Lost my whole squad one day, as a matter of fact. It was terrible.
Wow.
But anyway, that's, you know, I mean, I think about Vietnam every day, so that's what it is.
Sure.
But anyway, so after Nam, I went to Fort Ord, California for 6 months, and then I got out of the service, and I came back and went back to work at Shasta for a while, and then I asked for a raise, and they wouldn't give it to me, so I quit, and didn't do much for it. And then I met this gal, my ex-wife, Vicki, and we had the 2 boys, and that didn't work out. I'm sure it had a lot to do with Vietnam. I couldn't talk about it to anybody, so I'm sure that was the reason, part of it anyway, I suppose.
Right.
But so I went back to Shasta for a while. I tried to go back to college, but it just didn't work. It was didn't fit in for some reason. So anyway, and then we ended up getting divorced. In '73, they had a fake gas shortage, so I lost a job at Shasta because RVs weren't selling at that time, and so anyway, after the divorce and stuff, I got jobs here and there, little stuff, and then I built boats for a while. That was kind of fun down at Woodland.
What type of boats?
They're bow pickers, 24-footers, 26-footers.
Oh, okay.
That was interesting. Did all the woodworking stuff, and the girls did the fiberglassing, and I didn't care for that anyway. That was a messy job.
Yeah.
So, and then of course that guy, he quit. He was fishing up in Alaska at Cordova Bay, and he just kind of got away from it. A bunch of guys ordered boats, and we built them, and then that was it. It didn't last too long, a couple of years or so. Mm-hmm. And then of course my back was out. It was bad. I heard it in the service, and I looked for work everywhere, and nobody wanted anything to do with a bad back at that time. So that was irritating. So I got away from that. I just quit looking for work and did my own thing with wood. Living in the center. Of course, the population back then, especially when I first moved here, was somewhere between 350 and 400 people. I'm not sure what it is now, 3,000 some. So everybody knew I did woodwork, so they would always ask me if I could build this or build that. So I existed, got a certain percentage on my disability, and let's see what happened after that. Of course, I just finally were the place I was living in. Jane Troop owned it, and her husband Harold, they had the tavern years ago, and so I was living there. It was kind of a one-room studio apartment, and Jerry Johnson bought the place, and he said it was okay to live there, but then after about a week or so, he says, "No, I'm gonna have to have that garage. I need that area there for a garage." I said, "Okay, well." So I went to a friend's. Her name's Barb. She had a house over by the fairgrounds, and I lived there for about a year while I put in for more disability and PTSD and stuff. Well, I finally got that, and it's just been pretty good after that. Getting a pretty good check every month. So bought a house here in the center. I reckon I'll lay down here somewhere when the time comes. Yeah.
So you've been in your house for
about 20 years now.
20 years, yeah.
Well, it'll be 20 years next year. Yeah. But when I first moved to the center, of course, like I was saying, it was a nice, quiet little place, and we kind of grew up down on the river. What they called Hams had a bean yard down there, and we were always down there swimming in the summer, especially, and hunting rabbits in the winter and that kind of stuff. And it was fun, interesting.
You actually made the Welcome to the Center sign.
Yes.
That was here for many years.
Yeah, that was in the 80s, 85, 86, somewhere in there.
And when did they remove that? And
well, they did some work on the old bank, which is the city maintenance, and they decided to put up the sign they have now. I'm not sure what they're called with the electronic stuff. And they took it down. They put it out by the maintenance building. And one of the guys says, "Hey, Don, you want that sign back?" I said, "Sure." So I have it for a headboard in my one room there.
All right.
And I figure maybe someday they can maybe bring it down here to the museum or put it out here somewhere. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
But
Well, you've
yeah.
seen a lot of changes to this little town.
yeah, it's especially on the river. I remember where we went swimming down the river. It was all sand clear up to Mason Creek, which is at the end of Stoughton Road. And then from there on up it's rock. That's where the tide changes, where the tide stops. And so it's all tide water up to that point. So it's sand bottom, so that's kind of interesting. And then there's a spot up there by Rivers. There's an old bridge up there. It's not a bridge anymore. It never has been for a long time. But you can still see the pilings. And I'm sure they're still there now.
Uh-huh.
I haven't been up there in a while, so.
Yeah.
And just things like that. It was fun growing up on the river.
So how was high school for you?
It was, yeah.
You didn't have your art classes and stuff
I
like
was
that
kinda,
that you wanted?
I managed to get through it. It was, it didn't do real good in English. I know these days they have teachers' aides and stuff, so they can get you through without, and I just wasn't good at it, so that was kind of irritating. On my senior year, I had to take a 11th over again, part of it anyway, and I guess it was 3 days before graduation that Mrs. Peterson was her name. She goes, "Get your purple readers out," and I flung it up in the air, and she said, "Who did that?" And I said, she says, "Out of my class." And then Mr. Tarver, he was the principal, and he came up and he goes, "Don," he says, "Well, I should hold you back, but I know you won't come back if I do," so.
Yeah.
So he graduated. He's the one that had the mechanical drawing class, which I was really good at, so. He was probably my favorite teacher of the teachers. So.
Right.
Yeah,
All right. Could I take you back to the military for just a second? You mentioned going up to Fort Ord, is that?
Well, Fort Lewis is up by Seattle.
Fort Lewis, okay. Is that where I heard that they had a Vietnam simulated village that you trained in?
They may, not to my knowledge. That's from Fort Polk, Louisiana. And they didn't really have anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, they had a helicopter there, so you could learn to jump out of it.
Uh-huh.
But.
And did you have to do that?
Well, yeah, go through training, yeah.
But when you went over to Vietnam, that's not something that.
Well, it's pretty much common sense what you're going to do. And, just hope you survive.
Right.
Especially the infantry, you just never know from one day to the next one. But all the jobs, I'm sure, were hectic or, depending on some easier than others. So,
yeah. I'm curious, when you came home, what was that like? I know at the time there was a lot of protests.
Yeah, my folks picked me up at the airport, and I just turned 21 back in March, so we visited for a while at the house there, and then I said, well, I got to do something. I got to go down to the tavern and have a beer, right? So I went down there, and Harold was working, true, and I was having fun. I know I was playing pool and drinking a beer, and there was a guy at the bar, and he, let me think of his name here. I can't remember offhand, but he had just lost a grandson or something over there, and he said something about, "What are you having so much fun for? Why don't you get yourself over to Vietnam?" And of course, Harold stood up and he says, he introduced me to him. Bill McKee was his name. And after that, Bill bought me a beer all night long. One of the weirdest things was in Vietnam, we had a Brew 33, a beer. And when it came to the center, there was a Brew 66. So that was kind of
That's
weird.
funny, yeah.
It was a tap beer from Rainier, a special beer.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny, yeah. But yeah, it was just, it was different for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was, treated well. Of course, the center's a small town, so nobody, looked at me funny or said weird things or anything. So, I know some people had trouble coming back.
Yeah, I'd heard of long protest lines as the planes came in and.
Yeah. It wasn't that bad in Portland. Not at that time. That was in '67, or actually '68 when I came back. So yeah, I was 20 when I was in Vietnam. That was pretty. Still a kid, naive.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's how they get you over there.
Yeah. But if you live through it, and then of course, after years afterwards, you see what was really going on, but I'm not going to give you that. So,
Right, right.
yeah, but anyway, so it was an experience for sure.
So tell me how you got involved with the museum.
Well, well, when they first opened up, I'd come down pretty much every weekend or every other week when they were open, first and third Saturdays. So, and I donated a couple of things, and then of course they asked me to be a director, so I thought, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah.
That's about the only thing I belong to other than DAV, Disabled American Veterans,
Uh-huh.
which I joined back in '71 when I had my back operated on. It had went out on me, and I couldn't relate to anything. I laid in bed there in the VA for about 2 months, and then they finally, they tried everything to see what they could figure out what was going on, and they finally operated, and it got much better after that. But every once in a while it would go out. Now they want to fuse it, and I'm just not sure about that.
Right.
It's a pretty big, well, it doesn't take very long to do, but whether it'll turn out good or not, it's hard to say.
Right, yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I haven't did it yet. I'm thinking I probably should, but we'll see what happens.
Oh.
You just got to learn to live with things in life, I guess, as much as you can anyway. So.
Right, I know. It's tough sometimes, so. With all the changes in our little town going on, do you remember any specific stories or?
When I first came here, the police department there was no police department. There was Mr. McCubbin's, where the library is. There was a house there, and they had a little store there where they sold bread and milk and candy bars, that kind of stuff. And then he lived right across the street. It's that little house with the tin roof on it there. And he had like a 60, must have been a 63, let's see, 60, maybe 60, somewhere in there. Big Ford. And he had one of those little red bubble things you stick on the roof, like you see in some of the movies. and so that was kind of crazy. And then after Mr. McCubbin's, there was Mr. Richard Pettit. That's Dave's dad. And he wore a uniform, and he had some kind of Plymouth or something like that. And he was always after me and Gary Richardson. He thought we were stealing gas. And he'd stop us and open the trunk and all. But, of course, we were doing a little of that. We probably shouldn't have, but we were kids. So, but we had to head out somewhere, so that was, yeah. But there was lots of little that were shut down. Of course, they were no longer in use. But I think they're probably all gone now. I think he told me that Candy had a map that'd be interesting to put it in here maybe somewhere. Because they were little schools they were all over the area around here. So.
Right. Yeah. So and now we're getting in another school.
Yeah. If they ever start on it.
Yeah. That's going to create a lot of traffic.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a mess.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean the city limits have expanded everywhere, and houses are going up everywhere. It's just a lot of changes. That's what it is. So can't do anything about it.
I know. It's like for all of us newbies, like I've been here 4 years now, it's like once we move in, then we want everything to stop and just stay the same as it is. But I guess it's inevitable to see all the changes.
It was just, like I said, it was just a small town. There was no trailer park. Just a very small place. Yeah. All the streets were gravel except for the 4th Street. It was paved out to the school and stuff. But there were no sidewalks anywhere except right on 4th Street by the buildings, the city itself. In front of the stores and the tavern and stuff. And at the end of the barber shop, that was one of the Soul Brothers. I remember getting my hair cut there just before I got drafted, and I just got it shaved off altogether. But when I went in there, they shaved it again. They didn't care. They just wanted to do it.
Right. Right.
So that was kind of strange, but yeah.
So, do you remember who the mayor was when?
I think it was one secretary. God, it's been so long ago. When I made the sign in 85, 86, the city hall was up on the old highways you had out of town,
Uh-huh.
just before you come to the corner, in a house, and that's where they had their meetings and stuff. The mayor, I can't remember. The only mayors I remember was Ed Siebler for a while. He was kind of a maintenance guy.
Uh-huh.
He was a nice guy. He spent his own money on gas and drove his own truck around to do stuff. He helped me put the sign in and stuff when we got it done, and that kind of stuff.
So was he the mayor after the sidewalks went in? I think it was Jack Wells that
yeah, Jack was in there somewhere, and
got the sidewalks going.
Skip Carlson was in there. Who else? Let me think. Bert Huss. He used to have the Podunk Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the city hall is right now. That used to be the Podunk Tavern. So there was two taverns, and that's when the card rooms started coming in. There's just two of them at that time.
Uh-huh. How did you feel about that when they came in?
What it was.
Yeah.
You
Was
know,
there a lot of controversy
well,
there?
there was there for a while, yeah. People, nobody else wanted them. I mean, but it was revenue coming in, so that was a good thing.
Uh-huh.
And they were so afraid of it bringing all this weird stuff in, but that never happened. I mean,
Yeah.
just a bunch of guys that like to play cards. It's up to them, I guess. So,
Right, yeah.
yeah, so of course then they built the Phoenix, and they redid the old skating rink into the Palace. And I think the only thing they kept in there was one little wall, and they covered the floor of the skating. It's still there, but it's under carpets and stuff. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's too bad that the skating rink is no more, because that seemed to be a real hub
Yeah,
for...
it was fun. I went skating there when I was in school and stuff. Didn't do real well. I fell down 2 or 3 times and thought that's enough of that. And of course the bridge that was there when I first got here was a steel bridge. And then it went over to Daybreak for a while, because in '24 they built the old cement bridge, yeah. And the bridge prior to that went to Daybreak, and then that was torn down and redone over there. And of course now we have the new bridge, and I imagine someday it'll be too small for what's going on. Who knows?
Was I've always heard that there was a commune that was here for a while, and that one of the trailblazers, Bill Walton, was a member of that.
Yeah, it was up in the Highlands. I can't remember exactly where it was, but
was that during your time here?
Yeah,
or before?
they had a pizza parlor there where the hairdresser was there. It's closed down right now, right? It's a dog grooming place.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, there was what they want to call hippies or whatever. Yeah, they were there, and of course Bill Walton, he come into the pizza place. He was, I don't know what it was really about. I mean, I didn't relate to it or anything. I remember some kind of a big house cabin-like thing, but I'm trying to figure out exactly where it was in my mind. I can't think now. Somebody else would probably know, but I can't remember
Right,
where it
yeah.
was. But yeah, but that's what it was. They had cut a wall through between the tavern and that place you could buy food and have it pass into the tavern. That's kind of interesting. Of course, Harold Troop had the front window. You could open it up and order hamburgers and stuff. And they had he was famous liverwurst sandwich. Was one of his big things.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
I heard that when they put the sidewalk in there in front of the tavern, that a bunch of the patrons came out and signed their names all over.
What they did was I'm not sure about that. Of course, they redid it a couple times, and but the steps going into the tavern have names, other little like bricks or whatever. I didn't put my name in there anywhere, but a lot of people did. So, or a little saying or something. As the center turns, I think was one of them. Yeah, but those folks moved away. Most of the people that probably put their names in there have moved away or passed away. Yeah, there was a lot of characters around the center back in those days. Leftover Smith and
That was his name, Leftover?
It wasn't his name, but it was a nickname
Right.
he had, And there was the Johnson brothers, and most of them had to do with logging, a year before that even, But they were pretty much all, a few more beer drinkers, a lot of them like their wine, fortified wines. And of course, there was, well, he had the Texaco station, what was his name? I remember he'd come in the tavern, Harold opened around 9 o'clock, so I'd go down there and have coffee, and old Tony was, I think his name was, and his hands would just shake, and he'd come in the tavern, and Harold would have a glass of wine ready for him, and he'd drink that down, and his hands would straighten out pretty good. And then the Texaco station, I remember that. And I remember I'd pull up there, and I'd say, get a quart of oil, and he'd say, you know where it's at? So I'd go out there, and he'd come out, and then he'd reach down his tires stacked there, he'd reach his hand down there and pull out a bottle of whatever he liked, He's a character. Yeah, but most of those things are all gone. The house is still there, but it's been all redone. It's next to the bakery there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, they used to have the gas pumps there for some time, but they took all that stuff out of there. I think they took the tank out too, if I remember right.
Was that where he had a little bit of a zoo or
Well,
a
just
monkey?
had a monkey. They had a monkey in a
Just
cage.
a monkey?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. That what she did. I wish I could remember her name. I always had trouble with names, but yeah, I guess she came over on a covered wagon some time ago. Before that, turn of the century, I think, somewhere in there.
Was she the midwife?
Yeah, she was a midwife.
Maddie
right? Yeah.
Shelton?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was Bessie McCutcheon. She had some property around here. She lived across the street from the Little General on what is that side street there? It's as long as I've been here, you think I know the names of all this places. But anyway, yeah, she had a little. Well, there's a prune dryer at the one end of where the fire department is. Big building, prune dryer. There's prune dryers pretty much all over the county, lots of them. And then her place is right next to that, and they pretty much tore it down. And that was the church, and it's still there, but they're redoing that.
That's just a residence, isn't it?
Right now, it's just ran out a couple of rooms, spaces. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to be a church and the parsonage was right next to it, where the coffee shop is. Yeah. And at one time there was a preacher there. I can't remember his name. I should, but he would always write letters to Bert and Bobby Huss. It's not too late to change. The weirdest stuff. He says, I sit in my window up there and look in the parking lot. And I see all kinds of bad stuff. I'm going, he was a character. Yeah, that was like I said, a long time ago. So. Yeah.
Did they have a newspaper when you were in town? I know
No,
at one
they
point we
didn't.
had two.
No.
Okay. Because I have yet to find
They
one.
had the real estate outfit. That was Mary Hine was her name. That's who Dad bought the property to. Dad bought the property to through her, and it was where right next to where the telephone company, the old telephone company that's on 4th, right there where you drive in, and now it's just kind of grass and stuff there, and there's a sign there, the museum has a sign there. That was a building there. Mary Hine had a museum, a real estate officer, and a library. A little library, and so that was kind of interesting. Yeah, she was a nice gal, and she lived up where Carla Carlson lives.
Okay.
Just up the street there in Aspen. But yeah, there was lots of where the police department is. There was an old building there, but it was falling down when I first moved here. And then where the church is, the new church, there was an old building there, and it was falling down. And so, of course, all that stuff's been, redone and
Sure. Yeah.
new buildings put up and stuff. But yeah.
And now we've got more changes. The the old TDS building.
Yeah.
The city just bought that.
Right.
It's going to be our new city hall, and
I guess a little bit of everything.
yeah.
Police department.
Yeah, if they combine everything, then
Well, that'll be good, I suppose. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
yeah.
It's always changing, so it's
Yeah.
how bad can it be?
That's the way life is. Everybody talks about, you've got those who want to keep La Center small and don't want to see grocery stores move in.
Yeah.
And then there's others that are, all but demanding for a grocery store to come in. And
Well, it'd be nice as far as having to go anywhere to get groceries, I suppose. But if it's just as easy to run down to Woodland or Battleground.
I know.
It's no big thing. So.
Yeah.
And we really don't have the room out here that I can see. Maybe out past where the new school's going to be, but I don't know if it'd work or not. I don't know.
I think it would have to be out there at the junction if
That's
they
another
ever
place,
get
yeah.
that going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, Don, I appreciate you coming in and
sure.
talking and telling me your story. If you have anything more, I can stay here all day.
I didn't know what it would be.
Okay.
Stories are stories. There's so many of them, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, my memory is just what used to be.
And that's okay. That's with all of us, I think.
Yeah.
But
As far as, like I said, the police now, after Mr. Pettit, there was a lorry benefit, and then Tim Hopkins was a deputy under Lori, and then when Lori quit, he took over. And then when Tim quit, then we have Mark. So yeah, so that's how that's working.
yeah.
But Mark's the only one I know. I don't know the rest of the police officers. He's no Jerry, of course, but he's retired.
Yeah, I kind of hope to never know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
It's like if you need them in an emergency, I'm glad they're
Yeah,
there,
for
but
sure.
I don't want to see them pull me over.
Yeah, they're an important part of what's going on, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Other than that, I can't think of much.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and sign us off. And
Alrighty.
again, thank you very much for your
sure.
time.
Yeah, no problem.